The Indiana Fever blow out the #1 team in the league, the Las Vegas Aces, on their home court. There's a couple things I do want to talk about. Caitlin Clark was out, A'ja Wilson was out, but let's just get into it.
The #1 team in the league, on their own floor, blown out by a Fever team that was missing not one, but two of the biggest names in women's basketball. And that's not even the strangest part of the night.
The offensive rebounds for the Aces tonight were just terrible. What were they? They were 6-13. So the Indiana Fever on the glass, getting offensive rebounds, got 13. The Aces got 6. Defensive rebounds, 26-24. Overall, they just dominated on the glass.
Start with the glass, because that's where this game was actually decided. 13 offensive rebounds for Indiana, 6 for Las Vegas. That is not a bad night. That is a collapse in the one area the Aces are supposed to own. And there's a name attached to that collapse, even though she never checked in. A'ja Wilson. When she's on the floor, those extra possessions don't happen. The Aces don't get outworked on their own boards. Take her out, and suddenly the defending powerhouse is getting pushed around under the rim by a team that plays smaller. Indiana didn't win this with fireworks in the first half. They won it the boring way, the surgical way, just grinding out second chance points and refusing to give any back. But hold that thought about who was missing, because there's a version of this story that should make Caitlin Clark fans a little uncomfortable. And we'll get there.
But a lot of the Fever players actually had really good nights. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell came in with 27 points. She was playing good in the first half, but in the second half, she just like took over. She was driving a lot. She was drawing a lot of fouls. She did draw a foul from deep and sank all her free throws.
Kelsey Mitchell, 27 points, and it wasn't a quiet 27. First half, she was solid. Second half, she decided the game was hers. She started attacking downhill, getting into the paint, drawing contact. She even drew a foul, shooting from deep, and calmly knocked down every free throw that came with it. When a guard is that comfortable, getting to the line and cashing it in, the defense is stuck. Foul her, she scores anyway. Back off, she pulls up. She put the whole offense on her back in the second half and carried it. And she wasn't alone. Aaliyah Boston went 3 for 4 from 3 on her way to 18. Sophie Cunningham hit 3 of her 5 from downtown and shot 50% on the night. When your role players are stroking it like that, you don't need your superstar. Which is exactly the sentence that's going to come back around.
Doubling her. But also, Lexi Hull came out to play tonight. She did not make just one, but 2 buzzer beaters, one of which she had to jack up with the shot clock winding down.
Gonna have to jack one. And gets it to go! That's 2 buzzer beaters!
She did end up dropping 10 points, and she shot 5 for 10.
And then there's Lexi Hull, who apparently decided one buzzer beater wasn't enough. She hit 2. One of them she had to just throw up with the shot clock dying. No time to think, and it dropped anyway. 10 points, 50% from the field, and she filled the rest of the stat sheet with rebounds, steals, and assists on top of it. Here's what's interesting about Hull, though. The way the game is being officiated right now, with how tight the whistle has gotten, works against her. Her whole value is that physical, disruptive, in-your-jersey defense, and when every bit of contact is a foul, she can't play the way she wants to. So to see her go get buckets on the offensive end and stuff the sheet in a game where her defensive style is being handcuffed, that's a really encouraging sign. That's a role player expanding her game because the rules forced her to.
But man, sometimes Raven really does make me laugh and how much of like a rookie she is and how green she is. There was a jump ball, I think, between her and Kennedy Carter. She went and tipped it up, got the tip, and then rebounded her own tip off the jump ball, which is like, you just can't do that in basketball. It's against the rules. So that ended up being a turnover. But overall, they did not have many turnovers in this game. They had 7 turnovers and they forced 13.
Now, not everything was clean, and the rookie moments were real. Raven Johnson had one of those green, first-year sequences that made me laugh. There was a jump ball where she tipped it, then rebounded her own tip off the same jump. You literally cannot do that. It's against the rules. Instant turnover. And there was another possession where she got the ball off a Vegas mistake with teammates waiting on the far side of the floor. And instead of pushing it and swinging it cross-court for an easy look, she just didn't see it. That's fine. She's a rookie, and I see her turning into a really solid pro. She's not there yet, but the tools are there. Here's why I bring it up, though. That specific play, reading the floor, whipping the ball to the open side, turning a scramble into a fast bucket. That's the exact thing Caitlin Clark does in her sleep. Raven doesn't have that intuition yet. Almost nobody does. And that's the quiet tension running under this entire game. Even on a night the offense hummed, the person running it isn't a natural conductor. So what happens when the actual conductor comes back and the sheet music was written for somebody else?
On the Aces. Now, so Caitlin Clark was not in for this game. Hoping she does feel healthy. She might be out for the Mercury game, but who knows? I think that what I noticed is this team is like, it's like they are not running the right system for a player like Caitlin Clark. They're a good team without her. I wouldn't call them a contending team, but I would call them a really good team and possibly like way up there in the playoffs, like maybe making round 2 in the playoffs or something like that at this point and how they're looking lately.
Okay, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Caitlin Clark did not play in this game, and this team, this exact team, without her, looked organized, connected, and good. Not a contender, let's be clear, but a real, solid, dangerous team. The kind that could push into the second round of the playoffs based on how they're playing right now. So the obvious question everyone's thinking, but not saying out loud, if they're this good without her, what does that mean? And the answer is not what the loudest voices on either side want it to be. It's not, they're better off without Clark. It's not, see, she's overrated. It's something more awkward than that. It's that this team might not be running the right system for the player they built everything around. Because when Clark sits, the offense that steps in isn't hers. It's Kelsey Mitchell's, and it flows.
But you got to build your system around your star player. And when it's someone as talented as Caitlin Clark, it's just a big disservice to the Indiana Fever in general. Now, with Caitlin Clark on the team, it's her team, but without Caitlin Clark, it's definitely Kelsey Mitchell's team. And I think that they're catering more to that style of play when it doesn't necessarily work for Caitlin.
Think about what that actually implies. When Caitlin Clark is on the floor, it's her team, as it should be. But without her, it's clearly Mitchell's team, and the coaching staff seems to tailor the style of play to that. The problem is, those are two very different styles. Mitchell is an isolation scorer, a bucket getter who thrives with the ball in her hands attacking one-on-one. Clark is the opposite. She's a conductor. She's throwing cross-court passes, hitting shooters in stride, pushing the tempo, doing things that make you sit up in your chair. That style is what drew millions of new eyes to this league in the first place. It's refreshing, it's unpredictable, it's fun. So if you build a system that fits Mitchell's ISO game and then you drop Clark into it, you're asking a Ferrari to drive in a school zone. You're not going to see what she can really do. And that, more than any single loss or any single stat line, is the thing worth arguing about. But before we go all the way down that road, look at what one of the young players is quietly becoming.
Make an impact. Like, I just think that Mo Billings is a solid role player and she's getting paid $800K a year. So, you know, I'm not gonna let that go just yet. But yeah, Aaliyah Boston, she came away with a double-double tonight with her 10 rebounds and 18 points. And I don't know, her from beyond the arc is just so impressive. And
Aaliyah Boston, double-double, 10 rebounds, 18 points. But the number that matters is the three-point shooting, because it changes what this whole team can be. One Fever content creator made the point that Boston is turning into the stretch-forward big this roster has desperately needed. And watching this game, that's exactly right. The Aces knew it too. They were covering her out at the arc, doubling her, treating her like a perimeter threat instead of just a back-to-the-basket post. Now, this is not me saying the pick and roll should disappear. That's still her bread and butter, and it should stay. But if she can pick and pop and knock down that three consistently, she becomes a second thing defenses have to account for. That's how you modernize an offense. That's how you stretch the floor so your guards have room to operate. A big who can bang inside and step out and shoot is a matchup nightmare, and Indiana might have just found one on their own roster.
That's modernizing the team. It makes it so that they're able to stretch the floor more. But you know, watching Bree Turner was making a bunch of layups. I was like, where was this last season? She couldn't make a layup for the life of her. I think that there was a lot of pressure on Bree Turner. It's just my personal opinion in watching her play. And you know, sometimes her layups are wild. Like she threw it up like way high off the glass when she was wide open for a layup, and it did go in, but Yes, I mean, she went 3 for 3 today.
And the role player theme kept going because Brianna Turner was out there making layups, which, if you watched this team last season, is almost funny. She could not finish around the rim to save her life last year. This game, 3 for 3. Every look at the basket, she converted, even the wild ones. There was one where she threw it way up high, off the glass, while she was wide open, and somehow it still dropped. My read is that last season, there was a lot of pressure sitting on her. And something about this stretch has loosened her up. She still makes mistakes, plenty of them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you she's a completely different player, a total 180. But she was on the floor for 28 minutes, which surprised me, and she made a positive impact in basically all of them. And that's the through line of this whole win. It wasn't one star going supernova. Add it all up, Mitchell taking over, Boston stretching the floor, Hull all over the box score, Cunningham from deep, and now even Turner finishing inside. That's depth. That's every role player pulling their weight on the same night. That's a hard thing to beat, and it's a big part of why the #1 seed couldn't.
And she does make a lot of mistakes still. I wouldn't call her, a completely 180 type player, but, she makes an impact when she can in the minutes that she's in, although she was in for 28 minutes. I had no idea. That's a while for Bree Turner. But they did end up curbing Nalissa Smith, who has been killing it lately, especially without Asia Wilson. She's kind of been like their 1A under the glass and in the paint, and they limited her to 9 points.
Now, flip it to the other end, because holding a team like the Aces to 68 points does not happen by accident. Nalissa Smith had been quietly killing it lately. With Aja Wilson out, she'd basically become the Aces' interior anchor, their go-to under the glass and in the paint. Indiana held her to 9 points. They took away the one player who'd been carrying the front court load. And once she's neutralized, the whole Vegas offense narrows. Chelsea Gray, who's been playing decent basketball lately, got limited to 15. Jackie Young managed 15. Jewel Lloyd was cooking the fever early, giving them problems in the opening stretch, but her shots stopped falling, and the Aces as a team went cold from deep, 21% from 3. They took 19 shots from out there and made 4. When your bigs are contained and your perimeter goes ice cold at the same time, that's how a #1 team ends up getting run off its own floor. Indiana didn't just outplay them. They took away every option one by one.
Overall, so they were beating the Aces there too. They were shooting 40%. So yeah, basically the Indiana Fever completely outplayed the Aces, and they were outcoached by the Aces. I don't know if it was that black leather jacket that Stephanie White put on for the game, but she's had a lot of luck with that jacket in the past. I think that there is a bit of a frustration from a lot of people, especially a lot of Caitlin Clark fans, in seeing the Fever play this well without.
And that word, outcoached, is the one that should sting in Las Vegas. Indiana didn't just outplay the Aces, they out-schemed them. The Fever shot 39% from 3 and 43% overall. The Aces shot 40% from the field and were beaten in basically every meaningful category. That's not a bad shooting night excuse. That's a game plan that worked at both ends. And here's the detail I love. Stephanie White walked out for this game in a black leather jacket. And if you followed this team, you know she's had a run of luck in that jacket. Superstitious? Sure. But whatever the reason, she came in with a plan, executed it against a roster stacked with Olympians, and left with a blowout on their home court. Meanwhile, the Fever forced 13 turnovers and committed only 7 of their own, 13-7. That's a discipline gap. That's one bench preparing better than the other, and it showed up on the scoreboard from the opening minutes.
And she's not exactly predictable, I'd say. She was benched for a while after saying that, Becky Hammon had her on a leash. I know that Becky Hammon, of all people, would not tolerate that. So she was benched for a few games, but she played for 15 minutes and came away with 0 points. She only attempted 2 shots, too.
Which brings us to the matchup I was excited for and never got: Kelsey Mitchell versus Kennedy Carter. 2 of the best isolation scorers in the entire league, and I wanted to watch them go at each other. Instead, Carter turned in 15 minutes and 0 points. 0. She attempted 2 shots the whole time. And you have to understand the backstory. Carter was reportedly benched for a stretch of games after being quoted saying that Becky Hammon had her, in her words, on a leash. And look, of all the coaches in this league to say that about, Becky Hammon is not one who's going to let it slide. So Carter comes back, gets 15 minutes, and does nothing with them. Part of that is because Raven Johnson, a rookie, was defending her and had her in clamps a few times. Let that sink in. A rookie locked up one of the most dangerous scorers in the league. Carter's game can be electric, but it's also unpredictable. And right now, the head is clearly not in a good place.
I'm sure. So I'm really glad that this happened. I mean, you got to remember, the Aces were ranked #1 until today. Now they're #2 because the Lynx have bounced back to that #1 spot. And this was a blowout pretty much, 84-68. But you know, I do have to wonder about the system and how Caitlin Clark fits into that, because the system should be built around Caitlin, in my opinion, when you have a player.
So let's zoom all the way out and put the stakes where they belong. Before this game, the Aces were the #1 team in the league. Full stop. This result knocked them down to #2 because the Minnesota Lynx bounced right back into that top spot. That's what makes this more than a random regular season win. A depleted Indiana team. No Caitlin Clark, no franchise centerpiece running the show. Walked into the building of the reigning best team in the WNBA and beat them by 16. And I want to be clear about how I feel, because there's an ugly little corner of the fan base that wants to see the Fever fail without Clark. Like that would somehow prove a point. That's gross. Those are her teammates. Those are women she cares about. Clark doesn't want them to lose without her, and neither should any real fan. Watching them win like this shouldn't feel threatening. It should be exciting. The problem isn't that they're good without her. The problem is what good without her is quietly telling us about the with her version.
They're like that. I feel like the Aces build around Asia, deservedly so, because she brings so much to that team, despite the, 3 other Olympians on the team at the moment. I mean, Dallas builds their system around Paige. It's just kind of like what you do with your star players, especially players as talented as Paige and players as talented as Caitlin Clark. I mean, we all want to see a ring on that finger at some point.
And here's the real answer the whole night has been building toward. You build your system around your star. That's just what winning organizations do. The Aces build everything around Aja Wilson, and they should. She's the engine, even with 3 other Olympians standing next to her. Dallas builds their entire identity around Paige Buchers. That's the blueprint. When you are lucky enough to have a talent on the level of Caitlin Clark, the offense should bend to her, not the other way around. And what we may have just watched is a team that plays beautiful, connected basketball in a system tailored to Kelsey Mitchell's strengths, and then asks the most electrifying passer in the sport to squeeze into that same box when she comes back. That's the disservice. Not to Mitchell, who has earned her role, but to Clark, and to everybody who turned on this league specifically to watch her do things nobody else can do. This team is good. The question is whether good is costing them the chance to be special. So I'll put it to you. Is the problem the roster around Caitlin Clark, or is the problem the system and the coaching she's being asked to play in? Because those are 2 very different fixes. Drop your take in the comments. I read them, and I want to hear where you land on this one. If you got something out of the breakdown, do me a favor and like the video and subscribe if you want more of these. I'll see you on the next one.